Lots of dappled light falling through the branches onto the path below me. It's a beautiful sunny day today for this photo walk. We've had some rotten weather of late, but today's very nice. And we're going to get a sketchbook photograph to show you where I am on the path. F5, 450th, shutter speed, 160 ISO. Just a sketchbook picture to start the day. Here we go. And before we start the show, a human message. I think you'll get the idea. Thanks to Art Helper for supporting this show and keeping us here. And I say that as a human, which apparently now needs saying even more. Art Helper, you see, is a professional networking community for human artists with a real-time feed of work and discussion and news and a global directory of human-made art. Made by humans for humans, featuring humans. I think you get the idea. It's free to join at arthelper.com/sign up. arthelper.com/sign up.
Today on the Photowalk.
I went back to college and I met John Hedgecoe, who was the professor in those days, in the corridor. He said, "How did you get on with Bill Brandt?" And I said, "Well, I don't think I'll go back." He said, "He can't teach me anything." He said, "You will go back." He said, "You make the most of your opportunities. You go back again next week." So I thought, what shall I take him this time? I'll take him those people pictures. Took him a great bunch of them in a portfolio, and these different effect on him entirely. He sat and he looked through them all really slowly, and he had this lamp behind his back, and I remember him stopping and pulling the lamp a bit closer over his shoulder and settling down again, and he just looked through them, and I just watched his face because the fire was lit again and it would flicker on his face. You know, he'd look through them and he said, "Where did you take these pictures?" And I told him that the first lot were in Sheffield, some were in Leeds, etc. And the last ones he'd looked at were in Brick Lane. I'd only taken them within the last fortnight or so. And he just said to me, Fran, I'll tell you, don't ever lose these pictures. They will have social significance one day."
That is Fran May. And there are two reasons I'm playing back some archive material today from, well, it's a long, very long time ago. One is that I've been sorting out my books and came across a wonderful monograph. The second reason is because I am at last editing a film that I made with her a long, we get the idea, Neil, time ago. Fran May is a British photographer who made these fantastic black and white pictures of everyday life in Britain during the 70s. Northern towns, markets, pubs, kids in the street, old shop fronts, that kind of fare. Brick Lane in London before it was, well, I say developed, but no, Brick Lane, parts of it is, many parts of it is pretty much as it was. Okay, shop facades have changed, but it's a wonderful place to photograph. She actually moved to the UK to a very different way of life, from wide open spaces in Canada to Hawaii and then to England, and made these incredible documentary pictures in black and white in the 70s. Under the mentorship of people like Bill Brandt. Not a bad way to learn. What I like most is that the photographs don't feel staged. They feel just gloriously human in every single way. Proper slices of British life that's mostly disappeared now. And I know it's very easy to look at black and white pictures and get all gooey-eyed and nostalgic. But if you look at her work, and I'll pop some on the show page today and have plenty of links for you, you'll understand why I feel that way. And actually it makes a lot of sense today because it's also Teach Me Street. Valerie Jardin is back to talk about street photography for our once monthly feature. Are you okay, pups? It's very peaty water in there, isn't it? You go in brown, you come out browner. Either that or it's whiskey. Is it whiskey? In which case, I'm going to dunk myself in there as well. Is it a good year? Letters in the mailbag today from Margaret Ellison in New Zealand. She's lost her way photographically, but is regaining zest for pictures through writing. There's a trio of postcards. We haven't done postcards for a while. From all around the world. Robin Taylor Hunt's in India. Maurice Webster is in Venice. And Colin Mayer is on what looks like a very cold beach in Blackpool in England. Plus, Gene Westberg has something to say about a word I'm far too English to say out loud. Well, without drawing the curtains and putting a second pair of socks on to keep me safe. It's probably one of our more eclectic shows today. So, shall we walk? We're walking in Penwood again today. I've come because it's quite windy, and there's a lot of cover here. Walking through the trees means you'll hear whoosh, and of course, well, I say of course, not necessarily. You may not have heard the episode where we walked. Was it last week walking in Penwood? I think it may have been. The weeks are going past so quickly, but there's the traffic to deal with as well, which is just over there. Can you see it through the trees? Just there. No, you're not looking the right way. That's it, just through those trees. So I kind of have to dodge that a bit. I love this walk and I love this woodland. Reintroduced to me by my good pal Giles recently, but it does have a traffic problem, insofar as it's right next to a main route, a big road that goes north to south from where I live down to Southampton. Anyway, thank you again for the mails, for the letters, the thoughts, the pictures that you send in. Without your letters, there's nothing going on really. Well, there's an interview and I'm very proud to bring those to you, but it would be just another interview programme. And whilst there's nothing wrong with that, I thought finding some space in the podcast sphere to do something different with our photographic show here was quite important. You okay, pups? So I go walking with, Barney most times. Come on, this way. We go to Woodland. Yes, we go to Woodland. A pattern is emerging. Yes, it is, pups. We go to my favourite canal, close to where I live as well. But we take a mailbag out with us, your letters, your thoughts, your pictures, and listen to the guests in between that we have. And today it's Fran May. The email address for the show is stories@photowalk.show. Stories@photowalk.show. Some lovely bluebells here. These are still looking... Have you got stick of the day, Pups? Pups is running past me with a completely unbalanced stick. He'll not get far up the path with that one. Ooh, can't be bothered with this. So we're starting this week in the mailbag with Margaret Ellison, who, by the wonders of this thing called the podcast sphere and a long piece of very taut string called the internet, is local to me. Well, in a way. She lives in New Zealand. Kelburn, actually, part of Wellington, which I did need to look up, and I've now placed it on the long list of places that I'd like to live one day, which means at this rate, with all these fantastic places, and there's another one coming up that you send to me where you are, where you're living, where you're travelling. I'm going to have to live till I'm 548 or something close to. I wrote a piece on the Halfway to Maybe podcast last week about George the tortoise, who is probably the only one in our family who can live even a decent fraction toward that figure. Anyway, here's what Margaret wrote. Dear Neil, I think there are a lot of photographers who reach a point where making pictures no longer feels natural. And you still go out, you still carry the camera, but somewhere along the way, you think, why am I doing this? Am I still getting anything from this? I've lost my drive, or mojo as you would call it. Yes, I do. That's the word I use. Mojo, yes, Pups, you're right. Well, that happened to me last year. For months, every time I went out to photograph, I felt trapped inside my own habits. I knew exactly where I'd stand before I even arrived somewhere. I knew which lens I would use. I could almost predict the photographs I was going to take before I even took them. Photography started to feel more like repetition. I don't do this for work, it's my hobby, but all the same there seemed to be a lot of pressure. I'd leave the house thinking I needed to come back with something worthwhile, or the whole thing really wasn't worth it at all. I blamed all sorts of stuff. Lack of time, too much time online looking at other people's work, as you recently talked about with Ruth Guest. You know, that episode, it's only a couple of weeks ago, that certainly struck a chord. Hit a nerve, struck a chord, didn't it? I was looking for photographs instead of looking at the wonderful place where I live. So, one afternoon, I left the camera at home and walked along Oriental Bay here in Wellington, minus that box. I sat on a bench near the water and simply watched people for an hour. Cyclists riding into the wind, two teenagers laughing as they tried to do a handstand on the parade seawall. Now, normally, I would have photographed all of that, but instead, I wrote about it. And I felt this burden of having to make a perfect picture of these moments completely lift. I started carrying a notebook wherever I went out walking. Sometimes I'd still take photographs, but other times I'd just sit somewhere and write down what I noticed. Small details mainly, snippets of overheard conversations. Writing slowed me down in a way that photography was not doing anymore. When you write, there's nowhere to hide, you see, behind technical choices. It's just you and a notebook and a pencil, Margaret writes. And strangely, once I stopped demanding photos from myself all the time, the pictures started to return naturally. I made pictures that didn't matter, and that helped enormously. I photographed ordinary things without worrying whether anyone else would really care about them. It appears I have a thing for pigeons. I think we forget sometimes that photography doesn't always need purpose. We do talk about purpose, and I do, yes, I know I underline the importance of purpose, but I think you're making a very good counter-argument. It's like you with your sketchbook photos, really. I suppose it is. And I'm about to make another one because I've just turned this corner. This is a lovely path. Sorry, hold on to that thought for a second, Margaret. I've got Barney, if he just stays still, bathed in the sunshine, and then the path just wanders away. Hold on. Oh, do you know, this always happens. I've started panicking. I've not generally started panicking. It's when I see a picture and Barney's in it and I think, right, better be quick. Where are we? Sorry. Shutter speed, 200th, f5, 160 ISO. Let's do that again. Minus a Barney. Oh, you've gone the other direction. That was a lovely portrait, or sketchbook portrait of you. Where were we? Oh, yes. Margaret says, if anybody feels stuck creatively, I'd honestly say this. Try leaving the camera behind, now and then. Take a notebook instead. Find a place to sit and watch people. Write about the light, write about the weather, write about how the place feels. You may find your photographs waiting for you when you stop chasing them. And don't be afraid of ordinary days. Not every walk needs revelation. Not every frame has to change your life. And I'll leave you with something I wrote recently after an evening walk. For the walker with a camera. See, I think this feels a bit like poetry. I'm going to read it as such. There will be days when the road gives you nothing. Only mud on your boots. Cold hands. A sky the colour of old paper. But still walk. Still look. Because sometimes the finding is not in the photograph at all, but in the small return of yourself, where you end up among trees, along hedges, beside water, moving through stone, and perhaps that's enough. A shutter opening in the half-light, a page filling slowly with words, a breath in the damp air, a figure wandering home beneath darkening clouds, carrying nothing visible except the faint beginning of seeing again. Warm wishes, Margaret Ellison in Kelburn, in Wellington. Oh, Margaret, you had me at Dear Neil. Beautifully written letter, really. What a great way to start the show today. It's interesting how the written word has surfaced more of late in the mailbag. I took a service the other day in my role as a funeral celebrant, which I know still confuses the bejingles out of people. Non-religious sort of minister might describe it better, though that would look very strange on a business card and far too long. But it is relevant to Margaret's beautiful opening letter today. Sorry if you feel slightly squeamish about this subject, but it was actually the first burial I'd officiated at. Up to now, I've worked in crematorium chapels, but this was a cemetery in which I'd always thought actually it was a church, what I saw through the gates. Turns out it's a chapel, religious or non, so I'm able to work there. I did the service, and then we went graveside. And I've been thinking beforehand about what I would say in that moment. The traditional words, the ashes to ashes thing, I'm not sure that feels very me, and you don't have to say those words. So instead, I gathered everyone around the grave and we closed our eyes for a few moments, and I just asked them to listen. To notice the wind moving through the trees. Shush, we're having a moment, pups. The trees were very close to us. Pups, you do ruin the moment sometimes. To feel the warmth of sunlight that was appearing briefly between the clouds, to hear the birds that were all around us actually, and even the distant sound of traffic. I know I've been moaning about it, but yeah, the distant traffic that was passing by on Long Lane, as it's called, that goes past this particular cemetery. Because in the weeks and the months and the years ahead, you're probably going to return here sometimes, and I didn't want this ground to really exist in your minds only as the image of an open grave. I wanted them to remember the moment and the movement, the light and the feeling of standing together, remembering somebody that they loved. And when you close your eyes and you really listen, the pictures and the memories that form in your mind are quite magical. And perhaps that isn't so far from photography, really, is it? Or writing, for that matter. It's funny how photography seems to find its way into every single corner of my life, whatever I do, because I think Margaret's absolutely right. Walking with a camera isn't only about what you see, often it's about what you hear and what you feel. And I do think that the photograph can happen before the shutter's even pressed. I know that to be true through the wedding work that I do. I'm led by my ears so often. Anyway, lecture over. I don't do this philosophy stuff as well as that lovely Sean Tucker, who I have invited back onto the show actually to talk about the act of writing. So hopefully that will come soon. Watch this space, as the grown-ups say. Right, shall we hear from this week's guest? Two guests this week, really. We've got Valerie Jardin later for Teach Me Street, but right now we've got Fran May. It's an interview with a difference, actually. Différence. Vive la différence. Going into my pseudo-French for a moment with Valerie later on. Yes, it's an interview with a difference because, as I think I said at the start of the show, at least I hope I did, these are words recorded a while ago. It's actually for, oh yes I did, it's for a feature that I'm editing into a film. So you do hear me questioning, I think, unless I edit this out. You're right, pups, I may well. But these are more really a collection of thoughts from such a talented photographer. Please go and look at her work on the show page today, and indeed follow the links to Fran's work. Here's Fran May. Though you may not originally sound it, Fran, you were originally from Vancouver. What brought you to England? What brought your parents to England?
Oh, my parents were English, and they'd gone out to Canada with 2 small boys.
Right.
And there was still a lot of rationing after the war, and they were living in a very tiny flat in York with a work surface you had to take off in the kitchen to reveal a bath underneath. And it'd been a bit of a struggle. They'd married late anyway, and my father had passed by a hotel with a sign in the window saying, "Big meeting, come and, come to Canada, Canada needs you," kind of
better
thing.
life in Canada.
A better life,
yes.
yeah. Land of milk and honey and all that. And he just thought he had nothing to lose, so he went over without my mother. And then my mother joined him later when he'd secured a job, got a house together and a car, and they'd never had a car before. And she went out on this ocean-going boat with 2 small boys, and she was the kind of girl who'd never been out of York before. That's where she'd born. She'd never been out of the city.
That was an education.
So it was petrifying,
yeah.
I know. She wrote a sort of journal as she went as well, so it's very interesting reading.
Do you still have that journal?
Yes, yeah, we do. And then she went out, and I was the first born in Canada. She had 5 babies in Canada. Then my father was told that he had to go work in the Peace River district, which was miles away from home, as it was, because he was an electrical engineer, and he was pioneering electrical lines over the Rockies, places that never had electricity before. Went with a group of men, there'd be about 50 of them. They'd cut down trees, build log cabins, shoot their own food, put some lines up, move on and do the whole process again. So he'd be away from home for about 3 months at a time anyway. And this other area that he was being sent to meant that he wouldn't come home very often, and in fact meant that we all would have had to have gone with him and gone to very elemental schools. And he just, his Englishness just kicked in. He didn't think he was doing right by us, and decided not to go. So he said, right, we'll all go live in New Zealand. So we all trekked off to New Zealand, and we were staying in about 3 motels, because by then there were 7 children. And I actually don't know how many months we were there. We were all trying to work it out, but it could have been something up to 6 months, that's all. I remember going to a school for a very short period of time, but never attending a lesson. And he couldn't get a job, so he just phoned his old company back up in Leeds, and said, "Can I come back?" And they said yes. I mean, he'd worked for them since the age of something like 13 as a lad polishing the doorknobs.
But you hadn't had any experience of the UK, of course.
No, none. I'd never been to school properly.
Well, you only knew Canada and New Zealand.
That's right. And it was always... We had a nice house. We were quite sort of middle-classy there. My father was earning good money compared to the life that he'd come from, because my parents came from dire poverty. Absolute dire poverty. My father left school at 13 to look after his mother, who had multiple sclerosis. His father was, pretty lazy. His sister refused to help. And likewise, my mother, she'd won a scholarship to a private school, in fact, the school that I went to eventually, because she wanted to be a teacher. She worked really hard to get a position at this school, but on her 14th birthday, her mother walked into the classroom and said, "Our Angie, come on, I've got you a job in the cake shop, and we need the money." And that's how it was. So their lives were terrible, because her father, there's a photograph in my book actually of my mother's parents. Her father was paraplegic. He'd lost both his legs as a 17-year-old in a construction accident with a crane that sort of flipped and crushed his legs. So he was taken off to hospital on the back of a cart, a horse-drawn cart, on the back of a door, to the hospital 9 miles away to have his legs amputated. And her mother used to just take in washing to help ends meet. It was that kind of life. A 2 up, 2 down terraced house in York is where they lived. And in fact, it was that house that we went back to when we arrived in England. We sailed into Southampton, and I'd never seen dullness like it. It was so cold. 1962 was a very cold winter. And we stood on the deck, all as kids, and we just sort of looked at one another like this, what the heck have we come to? It was really, I remember feeling the trepidation. We all did.
You were itching to get back, weren't you?
Well, we came from blue skies. I mean, it's cold in Canada, but it's like having a dry heat, it doesn't affect you nearly as much as humidity. And the same with cold, if it's dry cold, you don't feel that cold so much. And of course, we always had blue skies. So
you arrived back in the UK.
We went straight to that terrace house.
Straight to that terrace house. Yeah. There can't be many photographers who credit one of the reasons for their path leading to the arts and photography is, they blame a sadistic nun, which you do. And there was quite a sliding doors moment, really, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I partly that. I think I became an artist, or I became literary, if you like, on that arrival, and I became a visual artist, just remembering that cold arrival. And then, the shock of seeing the poverty that my parents had come from, it was still like that. It hadn't changed, no, not really. My grandfather was still mending shoes, which he was trained to do from the front sitting room. And they had one coal fire in the back room. And then there was the kitchen, the toilet was down the yard. And it was freezing cold. There was no hot water in the house at all. There was a bath, and nobody could work out how you got water into it. It's just extraordinary. And all the kids out the back, we used to go out the back gate and sort of try and socialise with all the children. And lots of girls were pushing prams around, looking after the younger siblings while their parents were at work. And these kids had just plimsolls on with their toes poking through the holes, and they had holes in their sweaters, and their teeth were black.
Almost a sort of cliche vision of Dickensian Britain in some way.
It was like, do you know that film Kess?
Yes.
Yeah, it was like that.
Yeah.
It was just like that. And everybody spoke in these and thous. Yeah. It was really amazing.
What did they make of this girl from Canada / New Zealand?
Oh, I had to speak Canada talk.
Did you?
I had to speak Canada talk. And when my parents eventually found a house, because my brothers were farmed out when we first arrived. They were farmed out to aunts and uncles to live in their house, and some of us stayed in a big double bed in my grandparents' house in their spare bedroom. And then my parents eventually found a house to buy in Knaresborough, and we moved there, and that's where I started school proper at the age of 9. I couldn't read or write till then. Wow. And I remember there was a girl called Janet Bendelow who came up to me and she said, "You can't read, can you?"
And you said?
Oh, I said no.
No, in your Canadian accent.
I'll show you how if you like.
So hang on, was it her or the sadistic nun that taught you English?
No,
eventually?
that was my grammar school. So
okay.
I caught up very quickly.
Right.
I managed to read and write,
yes.
And then the headmaster came to me one day and he said, "Fran," he said, "you don't have to do any more lessons anymore." He said, "What I want you to do is go into the first year class and help Miss Dyson with the littlies. You can do stuff in the sandpit or teach them maths or, do reading stories with them." He said, "because you've won a scholarship to the Bar Convent. And I don't have to do anything." And he said, "You don't have to do the 11 plus or anything." I said, "Oh, that's rather cool." So I went and helped Miss Dyson. At the end of the day, I helped her tidy up, and she'd walk me home and buy me an ice cream on the way home. So I felt like Queen Bee. I could do anything I wanted, And I'd won that scholarship on my storytelling and my writing. Yeah. And then I went to this Bar Convent school, and my sisters get fed up with me telling this story because they think but the English teacher was a nun, a very tall nun called Sister Margaret Mary. Over 6 feet tall she was, and she had a bit of a moustache, and we used to try and nip into the nuns' quarters to see if when she went to the loo she left the seat up, because we thought she was a man in disguise. She wouldn't give me a mark, not a single mark. I won the scholarship, and that headmaster in that primary school made me feel like I could do anything I wanted. I got the reverse. I got 0, 0 on 10, 0 on 20, 0, 0, 0. No marks ever for anything I ever wrote. And one day I plucked up the courage to ask why. And she said, "Because," looked down her nose at me, "because you're not writing like Tolkien. And I said, isn't your job to get me to write like me? And she said, go to the punishment room. Well, the punishment room was the art room. It doubled up. So I started telling the most terrible stories. I really enjoyed myself. I made up all stories. This school, you see, had a relic room. And once a year, we had to file, all the girls in the school had to file past this relic room. We used to have to go into it one by one and kiss this withered hand that was in a glass dome that was supposed to be the hand of St. Margaret of Clitheroe, who'd been stoned to death for holding out and looking after priests in a priest's hole or something. And so we had to kiss it, and it was supposed to make us feel more religious. And frankly, it didn't. So that's what I had to do. So I made up this story about this hand. I'd seen it floating up the third form staircase, which was a very narrow spiral staircase up to one of the classrooms. And I'd seen it floating and down there. The whole school believed me, and nobody would go into the classrooms. And I thought, there's such a wheeze, I was so naughty. And it was a bit like, Anyway, in the end, they had to get the bishop in to exorcise the whole place. It was just so that people would go back to class. So I kept on making up stories, and I kept on doing silly things, really silly things. Like I was always in charge of the lighting. If there was putting on a Shakespearean play or something, I was always good at lighting. And I knew at the back of the theatre, that little window back there, if you opened it, the big velvet curtains on the stage would billow out and move backwards and forwards like this. So, and that every morning we lined up in classes, and the headmistress would stand on the stage and say something to us, and then we'd all file off to class. And I thought, right, I'm going to get underneath there. And I took a broom underneath the floorboards, and I walked around with this broom going boom, 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 boom during assembly with this billowing. And I did the whole thing again. Everybody was frightened. I just thought it was... So I spent my life in the punishment room, basically. The English, the nun taught English, wouldn't have me in class anymore. Said I couldn't do the O-level, etc., etc. And so I did O-level art and A-level art in the same year, and got them both with very good grades. My parents had to pay for me to take the English O-level separately, privately, and I got the best grade in the class. So when I went to Sister Margaret Mary and I told her I'd got this grade, it wasn't grade 1, it was grade 2, but it was still the best grade in the class. She looked down her nose at me and said, "Did you?" And walked off again. This enormous space change from this middle class, big white house in Canada in a sunshiny state where you could walk down to the beach, and suddenly I was in these grim places, and I couldn't work it out. I couldn't understand how it could be like that in England, where my parents had come from. I just couldn't get it. And so I think that's why I started photographing it. And then I got absolutely hooked, because of course we had, in that time, it was terrible. It was 1973, 1974. The politics were haywire. I mean, there was electricity 3 days a week, and all these strikes were going on, and I didn't realise it fully at the time, because my father was very Victorian. Actually, we weren't allowed to read the newspaper. He was the only one to read the newspaper. We weren't allowed to watch television unless we asked first, and we had to say why we wanted to watch television. So we lived in a kind of vacuum, if you like, political vacuum. And I didn't really realise what was going on politically. All I knew was that suddenly we didn't have as much money as we used to have. And Mum was saying, well, we're going to a jumble sale. You can buy some new clothes there, that sort of thing. So my father's income must have plummeted at that point. And carpets were getting bare and all this sort of thing. So it must have been a difficult time for them. And so I just became even more hooked on the photography. I had a full grant, and I used to get buses I used to get a bus, and I would go to Wakefield, I would go to Sunderland, I would go to Scarborough, I would go to Blackpool.
Did you ever have a plan as you went?
I didn't have a plan. Somebody would say something like, "Oh, the zoo in Manchester's closing down." I thought, "Oh, I better go and photograph it." Yeah. And so I would get the bus to Manchester and go walk around the zoo. And I'd only have a short while there because, you know, what buses are like, they take forever to get there. You'd have a few hours and you had to come home again on a bus.
Now, you describe yourself as a loner, actually, and I've read that account of yourself, which is probably perfect, isn't it, for this kind of work and documentary photography? Because it's a very lonely individual occupation, isn't it?
You don't do it as a team. Yeah. You have to be a self-contained individual, you know.
There's an outside chance that if you hadn't met Bill Brandt at the Royal College of Art, which is where you went,
yes,
that this could have remained a more personal body of work than work hidden from public gaze. Or had you decided by then, nope, this is what I'm doing, I'm a documentary photographer, this is where I'm headed?
No, strangely, I'll tell you, interestingly, I took more landscape photographs when I was at Sheffield than I did these people pictures. And if you ask either Roger Taylor or Ken Phillips now, they'll say, "We didn't know you were taking those people pictures." They knew about my trees and my beautiful light-in landscape pictures. And in fact, it was the landscape pictures that got me a place at the Royal College of Art, strangely. So I started looking for trees in London. I went to Wimbledon Common and I thought, those spindly little sort of silver birches or whatever they're called. And I thought, this is no future. I think what I'm going to have to do is go back and do some more of those people pictures. So I thought, what can I do? And I went and I started actually photographing. I went right back to the I've got to understand people's lives thing. So I was a 50-50 person. I love landscape, and I still do lots of landscape. And I love doing the people pictures. So I thought, right, I'm going to photograph homeless people. So I got permission to go into a hostel for homeless men in City Road, and then I found a hostel for women, photographed them. And then I went into Centre Point in Shaftesbury Avenue and I photographed the kids. And I stayed there all night, a couple of nights, to help out. And then the idea was that I'd give them the pictures for publicity and so on. So I was doing that. And then somebody told me about this street called Brick Lane. I'd never heard of it. And I went there one morning. They said, you have to go early in the morning to capture the atmosphere. And I went there and I thought, yeah, there really is interesting. There's these huge characters playing accordions or, you know, this strange instrument. I don't know what it is. It's like a hybrid instrument somebody called Ginger would play. And just the other people that were there as well, the people in the cafes and who walked around. And I just went back and back and back and back. And so when, in the second year, when Bill Brandt was given an honorary doctorate, he had to, as part of that, he was asked to do some teaching duties. And he was quite old. He was in his mid-80s or mid to late 80s. And he was too old to come into college. So we used to go to his house in High Street, Ken. And I remember ringing the doorbell, and this woman's voice would say, "Who is it?" And I'd say, "It's Fran from college, come for Bill Brandt. Come upstairs." And we were up on the second floor. And, you know, she'd disappear, but there was a voice came from another room, and Bill Brandt would be sitting near the fire. He always had a live fire. And he'd asked to sit on a stool at his feet and show pictures. And I showed him the first time, I showed him my landscape pictures, because I knew he liked landscapes as well. And he said, "I don't think I can teach you anything." I said, "Oh, all right then." And I didn't know if that was a rejection. I didn't know quite how to talk to him. And I was only 21, you know, I was only 21 years of age at that time, 22 maybe. I went back to college and I met John Hedgecoe, who's the professor in those days, in the corridor. He said, "How did you get on with Bill Brandt?" And I said, "Well, I don't think I'll go back." He said, "He can't teach me anything." He said, "You will go back." He said, "You make the most of your opportunities. You go back again next week." So I thought, what shall I take him this time? I'll take him those people pictures. Took him a great bunch of them in a portfolio. and these different effect on him entirely. He sat and he looked through them all really slowly, and he had this lamp behind his back, and I remember him stopping and pulling the lamp a bit closer over his shoulder and settling down again. And he just looked through them, and I just watched his face because the fire was lit again and it would flicker on his face. You know, he looked through them and he said, "Where did you take these pictures?" And I told him that the first lot were in Sheffield, some were in Leeds, etc. And the last ones he'd looked at were in Brick Lane. I'd only taken them within the last fortnight or so. And he just said to me, Fran, I'll tell you, don't ever lose these pictures. They will have social significance one day." And he, really emphasised that. And basically, I think going back one final time after that, where I'd sort of realised I'd done something special, but I didn't really know how special. And so we talked about why, and he talked about, the key moments that you photograph in your life have a huge significance, and they become timeless moments. And that, even in his own lifetime, photographs that he took, which were then juxtaposed in the way that they were in his books with wealthy the parlourmaids in wealthy homes being juxtaposed next to a miner who was covered in soot and is just wearing his vest and is sitting down for his tea, still all dirty, or in having a wash in a tin bath with his wife pouring water over. But the juxtapositions had a profound effect on everybody. And he said, but a lot of those pictures were commissions that he took, just commercial jobs that he was given, but it's the way they were juxtaposed later. But he said the effect in his own lifetime of the passage of time had an enormous effect as well, because people look back, they're looking back in their own lifetime to a visual proof, if you like, a truth that they're almost on the cusp of forgetting, and yet you can't forget it because the photographs are there, and it was real. It was silver recorded with real light affecting objects and bouncing into the camera, so you were recording a reality. It wasn't like painting or drawing or even using words. It was a reality that you could really get to grips with, and it was the best way of recording life on Earth. It became like that. It became profound, It was just an amazing, amazing thing to realise.
Fran May, the edit. The film is, I'm working on it right now. You might say, because I've discussed this before, I'm sure, you've been working on that for a number of years, Neil. I have, but I've recently started editing more film material again, and I'm enjoying it. Right, you wonderful photo walkers. An Ella Fitzgerald moment to the tune of "We're having a heat wave, a tropical heat wave." Don't sing, Neil. I'm going to have to, I'm afraid, because we're having a meet-up, a summertime meet-up. The pictures are flowing, the rollers are rolling. Click, click. Isn't that how it went? I'm not quite sure. If I could get June 20th into the song, I would. And what's all the rollers, Neil? I'll tell you. The rollers are traction engines, which roll thanks to steam, of course. And I'm telling you, it's tenuously almost impossible, actually, to write a song about traction engines. So I'm telling you about a summertime photography meetup that we're having. I've mentioned this the last couple of weeks. And I think the best thing to do at this point is cross to Studio Neil. Otherwise, you're just going to have me singing to you, and Lord knows you don't need that, do you? Even on a summery day. So, yes, I'm going to cross to Studio Neil, appreciating, of course, that not everyone in the world can join us in person, as lovely as that would be. But if you're in the UK, I think we're going to have a lot of photographic photo walking fun at the 2026 meetup. Over to you, Studio Neil, to tell us all about it.
If you fancy photographing something gloriously, unapologetically English this summer, let me point you towards our Photowalk meetup at the Dean Rally in Hampshire, in England land. Yes, picture this: steam engines hissing into life, Men and women in oily overalls, polishing traction engines like they're priceless museum pieces. Vintage motorcycles, classic cars, tea and paper cups, the smell of oil, grass, burgers and rain that may or may not arrive sideways because, well, it's England. It's wonderfully eccentric and brilliantly photogenic. Following our 500th episode meetup at Greenham Common last year, I thought we should do it again. So this year, yes, we're heading to the Dean Rally together for a day of wandering, talking, picture making, and probably getting distracted every 12 seconds by somebody coaxing a 100-year-old engine back into life with a spanner and strong opinions. This isn't a workshop. There's no lectures, no assignments, no standing in circles discussing focal lengths while missing all the interesting stuff happening. It's simply photographers, like what you is and me, turning up somewhere full of stories and making our photographs together. And trust me, there's no shortage of subjects. Faces weathered by decades outdoors, and that's just me. Machines older than most of us, and that's just me again. Beautiful mechanical chaos, proper English summer fair energy in a Hampshire field. We'll pause at some point for a pint in the beer tent, I have no doubt, and compare notes. And because I'll be recording bits for the podcast during the day, there's every chance you may end up in an episode too. And if you fancy making a weekend of it, you can camp with us Friday and Saturday night, which means waking up to traction engines, firing into life before the crowds arrive. Honestly, that alone has got to be worth it. And there'll be a barbecue Saturday night, bacon butties in the morning for those staying over. Bring a camera, bring good shoes, bring a waterproof just in case the weather decides to become part of the entertainment. I know it's going to be a cracking event. Details are in the show notes, or simply go to the Photowalk website, photowalk.show, and hit the button that says June Meetup.
I'm very much looking forward to spending time with you. And if you are staying over, get there early enough on Friday night, because you'll get a good laugh as I try to put my borrowed tent up, minus instructions. Our good friend Steve has lent me his tent. He says, we lost the instructions a long time ago. I'm sure you'll work it out. Malia the Trees Davis is turning up, as well as Captain Keith in their camper vans. They're doing it the posh way, so I've no doubt they're going to be holding up scorecards or something. As I say, it's on the show page, under the tab, June Meetup. I do like a good meetup. Let's do a trio of letters from the mailbag, a triptych of travel, if you will, starting with silent drum roll, please. We don't want to scare the birds away. I was hoping at that particular moment that the one that's just been singing would start singing, but he or she hasn't. Shall I edit that bit out? Because it won't make any sense. There was me with my grand plans, listening to you chirping away quite happily. Might as well have actually brought a drum. Robin Taylor Hunt is where we start. Hi, Neil. I've been enjoying listening to you in the market in Kolkata. Of course, that's our Indian special, where honestly, it was like a kid in a candy shop stuff. So much to photograph. Where to look and where to photograph first. Really, it's a joyously wonderful, that sounds very pathé news, joyously wonderful problem to have. I've just got back from India, says Robin, and had similar challenges. Where do I point my lens? In my case, exacerbated by shortage of time as I was with a tour group of non-photographers. Do these people exist, Robin? Surely not. And we were halfway through a cycle ride, so I only had my iPhone with me. I snapped a few with intention, focusing on women with large loads of produce on their heads, but I needed more time really to do it justice. This photo's okay, but it's heavily cropped from the original to exclude the shoulders of other people who were in the frame. I'll need to go back. I'll pop the picture on the show page, Robin. In the meantime, yes, a very good excuse to go back. I like your style. I like the picture too. I'm going to call it Ready to Sneeze, as the woman closest to you, as you're photographing, looks like she's scratching her nose Is the word furiously? Probably not. Not furiously with a capital F. Trying to hold in a sneeze with that huge. I don't know. It looks like a bag of vegetables or fruit. It's covered on her head. Very, very heavy. Those bags. I tried to lift one, then put it on the floor and hoped nobody had noticed. Then there's one from Maurice Webster. Hi Neil, welcome back from your travels. For now, yes, I've been back a few weeks. There's a bit of a theme of having just got back from India and Bangladesh with these letters. I've thoroughly enjoyed your stories and images from Bangladesh and India, and I'm already looking forward to more of your upcoming trips later in the year. On that note, I've just returned, he says, from a few days in one of your future destinations in November, the incomparable. You say incomparable, I'll say never mind, Venice. Despite having visited the city numerous times, it never loses its magic for me, or Mrs. W for that matter. Wandering away from the tourist hotspots always delivers moments of tranquility and a feast for the eyes and the lenses and the senses on every corner. I'm sure you and your photo walkers will return with some great memories and images. In the meantime, I've attached a few of my humble efforts from the trip, along with a link to my website page containing further photographs. So I'll put that on the show page, of course I will. And I'll put the photographs that you've sent me as well. You've whet my appetite. Whetted? No, that's not such a word. There's no such word, is there? You've enthused me. I'm very much looking forward to it. What's happening to my English? How you say in English? I love the pictures you've sent in. A good, strong black and white picture, or 3 or 4. I love them. And yes, we go in November. Hint, hint. Mist over the lagoon is what I'm particularly looking forward to. Perhaps the Acqua Alta over the Piazza San Marco. Marco. Come on, sound more Italian, Neil. And we're going to do some night photography as well. Absolutely wonderful. So, yes, Colin Mayer is the third in the postcards. He's been visiting England land from Australia land, and we never got a chance to meet Colin. G'day, Neil. Been a while. Thought I'd drop you another postcard. The mail is getting a bit slower these days. Much like me. It's been a few decades since my first holiday to Blackpool. And you went back? Life seemed simpler back then. Can we just go on the tram? Can we go to the roller coasters? Please, can we? And then the donkeys. Animals. Some make us happy, some are scary, and some are life companions. Donkeys make me happy, if not a little bit melancholic for the simple joys that childhood brought. Blackpool donkeys, loved by kids, sitting on the saddle being chased by parents with cameras. Great to see this staple of the British seaside holiday continues to this day. Well, I'm happy about that as long as the donkeys are well looked after. I know that's an ongoing discussion, debate. I know, Paps, I'm on this one. But do you have anything more to say about it? You know, when I hold the microphone out, you don't bark. Then when I bring it to my mouth, you do bark. Eh? Hang on, I need to do something. I tell you what, because I need. All right, I need some quiet for the next bit from this third letter. So I'll bribe you. Captain Keith will be looking over his spectacles at me. You know, there we go. Have a couple of those. I saw a new advert for Captain Keith's dog training business, because he is a former police dog handler. And I've got to say, Keith, you're looking very muscly. Yes, you're looking in fine fettle, sir. But the dogs, your 2 dogs. There we go, another one. There we go. They looked as mean as anything. They were like, do you want some? Looking out for the photograph. Right, where were we? You wouldn't have expected it, but donkeys on a beach. Aye, here we go, yes. You wouldn't have expected it, said Colin. You wouldn't have expected it, but donkeys on a beach in Blackpool on a typical coldish day has become my contribution to your love, Neil, of haiku. So here goes, 575 in syllables, that's how haiku is. The donkeys on beach. For children they will wait. At 9:51. All the best, Colin. I love it, Colin. And for my other listener who is whispering that it was 565, that haiku, and not 575, it's just given me a chance to embarrass the kids by saying, wait for it, who cares? 6 or 7 work beautifully. Did you just say yes, I did? The 6-7 thing, when's it ever going to end? Thank you for the haiku. I appreciate it. And I hope you enjoyed, or the kids enjoyed, their donkey rides.
I got a letter this morning, boy. Hey, hey, honey. I got a letter this morning, boy. Hey, hey, honey. I got a letter this morning. Gonna see you when the sun goes down.
We're getting closer to the road. It was last week where we recorded this. As I say, the weeks do tend to meld a bit, don't they? This is a nice opportunity to... Oh, by the way, all those pictures that I was just talking about will be on the show page today. This is a nice opportunity, talking of the show page, to make another one of my sketchbook images of the path from where I'm walking today. Shutter speed 250th, f5. I'm at 160 ISO. I've dropped by 3 stops the exposure because there's all this wonderful dappled light. Now I'm going to bear with come on pups, this way. I'm going to bear with the traffic because just up here and on the right, which will take us away from the traffic noise and the busy A34, I found a bit of a dell, and I don't mean a computer. There was a dingly dell. Is that a rude expression? It's just up here to the right. I found it with Giles the other day, and we sat and had a coffee and a cheeky bacon sarnie. And it was lovely. It was a wonderful place to set up and photograph and just take a moment's quiet in the... here it is. In the woodland where nobody else goes. A couple of bits of housekeeping before this month's Teach Me Street with Valerie. The website is full of goodies at the moment. It's the place where you can learn about our trips, yes, and our meet-up in June, yes, toward the end of June, that is. It's also where you can sign up for the newsletter, which will soon have news of our zine, which is in the last few pages of design. At last, it is, yes. And I'm really proud of it, actually. I think it's going to be super. There's, I'll tell you this now, it's available digitally, but also I'm going to make physical copies that can go anywhere in the world, but there will only be 100 copies, physical copies. Plus, as we do our housekeeping, the assignments are back. These are now quarterly assignments, as the feedback has been that you want a bit more time to complete them. This month, we are looking for an image that says darkness. I have a few, actually. I might enter myself. So that's housekeeping done. Go to the website, photowalk.show. Shall we take a street jaunt? Some incredible pictures to start reviewing. Thank you for sending them in. If you'd like to send in a picture to be reviewed by Valerie, a wonderful street photographer, Valerie Jardin, then send them to stories@photowalk.show, stories@photowalk.show, 2,500 pixels wide, no watermarks or anything like that, please. Ideally candid, because that's really what Valerie specialises in, but I'm sure some street portraits can sneak through too. Here is Valerie Jardin with this month's Teach Me Street.
You know how you can get those T-shirts that just ask the same questions or answer the questions? You know, when somebody's asked you a question so many times, you just wear the T-shirt with the answer on it. I always, yes. I always feel like I'm saying to you, you've been on your travels. And then you should just wear a T-shirt that has the places you've been to.
Where I was. Yes, actually, almost fresh out of the airport. I still feel the jet lag.
Are you a bit jet lagged?
I was, yes, I was teaching in Prague for the first time.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. It was so beautiful. What a beautiful place. What a beautiful place.
It is.
And although, everybody knows how touristy it becomes, it's such a destination, especially for European travelers. It's still really easy to go off the beaten path and really find those little places that I like for street photography that are not overrun by tourists. So I found it actually quite easy to do there, more than I expected. So it was really lovely.
And you've been to, your second home or your first home? I don't know.
Yes, I was in Normandy for a week for little relaxing and visiting family. So that's always good.
Another wonderful place you are going to. I feel like I should burst into song with wonderful, wonderful Copenhagen, but you probably don't need me to do that. But you're going there. My youngest is going there. He's got with one of his friends. It's one of the summer things they're doing, and I think they're going just for the food. That's it. But you've got a workshop there, and you've got a place that's just opened up.
Yes, Copenhagen, June 26th, 28th.
Yep.
And yes, street photography. I love it there. I really love it there. I'm actually staying a few extra days just for me, which I rarely get to do, just to hang out. I made friends there, so I'm going to be there a few days ahead of the workshop, but such a great city for street photography. The architecture, you have such amazing modern backgrounds, and then the traditional buildings mixed in there. It's so great. I can't wait. I was there 3 years ago to teach a workshop, and I'm surprised I haven't gone back sooner.
Well, if you want more details about that, go to Valerie's website. I'll have a link, obviously, on the show page.
Yeah, or send me
or send Valerie a mail.
Send me a mail or on Instagram. Yes, it's great. And we have a direct nonstop, actually, from Minneapolis to get to Copenhagen. Wow. Yeah, which is amazing. I'm excited about that.
I was going to say, that's very useful for anybody that's listening now in Minneapolis.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's like when I do new workshops, like right now I'm setting up the 2027 workshops. Yeah. I'm looking at, okay, where can I go without connecting somewhere?
So, we've got Teach Me Street Pictures. We've got 2 collections, or small collections, if you like. We've had some great ones of late. Thank you so much for sending these in. If you would like to send a picture for Valerie to review and talk about, then you can send them to stories@photowalk.show. Where should we start? Let's start with Robin Marion, actually, if that's okay. I'm gonna start with the one that's the street scene of the two that are kissing outside a shop that's called Lena Stores. I'll read you what he says. I saw this couple kissing and decided to take a shot, but I wasn't sure if I had enough story to it. As I raised my camera, this lady walked by and suddenly turned as if she'd remembered something important. I only had one chance. I pressed the shutter. While I checked on screen, I noticed the young lad on the right. I'm not sure if he adds to the scene, but if I try to crop him out, it does lose something. The power of 3 and all that. So we've got 3 stories here. We've got the young lad walking to the right. We've got the lady on the left who does look like she's thinking, I've just forgotten my mobile phone. And you've got the 2 having a very amorous kiss outside the shop. So there we go. Personally, I like the image, he says, but in an ideal world, the 3 subjects could have been a bit closer to each other.
I don't think so. I quite like if it was just a couple kissing in front of the shop, it would have been fine. I mean, it would be a clean composition, a nice backdrop. I would have cropped it in a little bit, but it would have worked. Having the other 2, the woman becomes the main subject, and I love the expression, and she actually makes the photograph much stronger.
Even though she's focally soft, does that not matter?
Well, yeah, because he was focusing, it was the happy accident,
Yeah.
But I think it's that unexpected element that actually elevates the photograph in this type of composition. It's layered, and I think she works great because she has such a strong expression and gesture. it doesn't matter that she is out of focus. She's still really, really strong. The kid walking away doesn't do it for me. I think just it's more distracting than anything else. But there is something about 3, and here you just connect the dot. You go from the main subject to the couple kissing to the third person who is walking away. So I think it works. It's a more layered composition. Not something I react to that often. I don't look for them, and I think, as the photographer said, it happened by chance that this woman crossed the path. But I think it actually made a stronger composition here. It's often that happy accident.
Accidents, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Happenstances, etc. I've got my version of your mobile phone, by the way. You you try to avoid mobile phones at all costs. You see next to the lad as he walks off, there's one of those horrible A-frame cleaning signs. Wherever I go, it's almost like there's somebody in front of me, Valerie, putting out these horrible A-frame cleaning signs, and I can't take my eye off that blooming A-frame cleaning sign. Yeah. Even though there's so much else wonderful about this picture. Would you ever take that sign out? Maybe remove it?
No.
No.
I would never do that. It's our job as photographers to remove it before we press the shutter, period. I mean, it's fine. Nobody cares. Nobody knows, right? But it takes some of the merit out of the equation. If you start removing distracting element, no, I mean, then that means you didn't do your job correctly in the first place. Yeah. It is difficult. It's supposed to be difficult. And so don't cheat. If it's there, it's there. Maybe, this in black and white would probably remove it. And I think it would be a fine black and white photograph. But removing elements before they're distracting makes no sense in street photography, in my opinion. But
I love pictures where you're thinking, I wonder what that person's thinking. I wonder what that lady's thinking. Yeah, she looks definitely. She's definitely startled by something. Have I gone the wrong way? Am I going the wrong way up this street? Did I turn the hob off?
Exactly.
There's all sorts of questions in that.
It's good.
Right, the next one. I was on a photo walk with a group from the Diamantes Cafe. They're a dedicated and enthusiastic group of photographers of all abilities, and they hold monthly walks around Blackpool, open to all. It was unseasonably warm for that time of year, and I spotted this chap sunbathing. I couldn't see his head from this angle, but rather than move, I quite like the ambiguity of it. The shadows, I think, add another layer to the image, and the crutches, well, they just add to the mystery of the story. Again, we've got more questions, haven't we? There's a chap here lying on it's steps, isn't it? It's steps going somewhere, and he's got his towel down. He's got his top off, he's got his legs out, and he's put his crutches to one side.
No, I like that. It's funny because I'm actually writing a new book right now, a companion to one of the lectures that I've been giving, The Art of the Unseen Subject. And it's about that, about shifting focus and protecting someone's identity. It's not about hiding it. It's just bringing your attention to the moment instead of the person. And I think it's becoming more and more relevant and important to consider. So this would fit in that theme of the unseen subject, because there is no identity here, and I think it was well done, and I like the mystery. Actually, the crutches, I'm like, doesn't look like he has a broken leg, or he doesn't have a cast or anything. So I was a bit curious about that, the crutches next to him, but there is humor there, and I like it. And also we see two shadows of people just walking by, which adds to the
they're the unseen. They're all the unseen, aren't they? Because
exactly,
they're just shadows. And clearly Robin likes to work in threes, because there we go with the 3 again.
Exactly, yeah. Choosing not to reveal someone's identity is not a limitation. I think it's a choice. It's a choice. It's a challenge, and it's telling a story in a different way. I think it actually adds to the challenge, because the story doesn't come from the facial expression of the subject. It has to come from something else. And I think it's the moment that becomes the focus more than the subject itself. So I think it's one way of seeing it.
Well, Robin's fairly new to this, 63 years young at the moment, Robin says. Got into street about 3 to 4 years ago. You're going the right direction by the looks of it. Somebody who has been in it not so long is Stephen Schnell, and he has sent 3 pictures in. I think we'll concentrate, if you don't mind, on 2 of them in particular, unless you say to me that you want to concentrate on the young lady at the window with the laptop. I thought the 2 landscape-orientated pictures were the ones that caught my attention. Let me just read what he said. I bought my first real camera a year ago. I'm fascinated by street. It's been an exciting year discovering the many aspects of life in motion on the street and the joy of seeing things anew. Your podcast and Valerie's insights have been incredibly helpful, and I can't thank you enough. I really enjoy that part of the show. And Barney, apparently.
Yeah, good.
Good. Somebody does. Right. Shall we start with the chap that's looking out the window on what looks like the subway to me?
And that's the one of the 3 that he sent that really stood out to me. I like the mood. I like the grittiness, the grainy feel. I even like the color, believe it or not. Although when I'm indoors, usually I switch to black and white because of that yellow cast. But I think here it actually works well. And then the pop of red of the guy's jacket and the fact that there is eye contact really made this photograph work well, in my opinion.
In terms of when you're working with color, see, I with my social photography eyes, I'm looking at that thinking, oh, this is going to be a real problem when it comes to color balancing. And I'd be there drawing the blue fader across and blah, 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 blah. But actually, there is in terms of color. I know you love your black and white, but in terms of color, there are times when you really should leave the color to be what it was instead of trying to correct and balance it to what you might consider a true white balance.
Yeah, there's no way you'd balance that, and that's why That's why I shoot black and white indoors, because you have so many conflicting light sources that it becomes a nightmare. But here you just have to embrace this really eerie color. It's part of the story, in my opinion. So there's something really, mysterious about it.
Does it bug you that he's clocked you? That he's seen you? That he's looking right at you?
No, I think here, if he was turned the other way, it would not be a good shot. I think it's the eye contact here that made that photograph work. I mean, it would have been fine if he had been daydreaming or whatever, but I mean, this is much he's holding a phone. You can barely see it, but he's holding a phone. You see it on the edge, you see his hands. And the fact that he looked up and made eye contact with the photographer is much stronger than if it had been somebody just looking at their phone on a train. So it's good. The eye contact, as long as you don't provoke it when it happens organically like this, I think it actually makes the photograph stronger. I would definitely discourage people from provoking it. Nobody wants to look at those pictures of, how do you say that? Deer in headlights.
Oh, a rabbit in headlights, or a deer in headlights.
Oh, you say rabbit too. We have more deer than rabbits here. So.
We just have rabbits. There's nothing else. We do have deer as well. There is wildlife in the UK, you know.
I know, but not like here, where it's literally like how many deer are you going to hit on your way back from work
and
today?
There's less stuff that can bite you here, generally.
So I quite like it, and it's not like he looks angry, or it's just that fraction of a second when there was that connection before the train left or whatever, and I like it.
And the last one for Teach Me Street this week is the runner going past the shop. Now, I would say this is quite a busy shot, and it's difficult to work out what's going on. But the reason I like it is because I like again, we're asking questions. This is clearly a place that's not trading anymore, and there's a pile of envelopes there, and there's a jogger going past, and the number 817 features. But what's your feeling about it?
Well, see, that's the thing. I'm confused. I'm not sure what the story is about. I don't think it's about the jogger, unless the photographer was practicing reflections, which is probably the case. Then I would have picked a completely different window without so much distraction of the car parking lot in the background. And to me, it's more a story about the empty space, but then the jogger has nothing to do, is irrelevant to the story. So I'm not sure. If it was to practice reflections, it's a new photographer who is practicing, probably has a checklist. Okay, or maybe he has my book of assignments, a reflection, check.
If he hasn't, that's the one he can choose for his ebook.
Probably get it. and then it's fine. It's practice. It's practicing. But obviously not a picture that really, that he's going to print. So I'm a bit confused if it's the space that caught his attention first, because it looks like an empty space, or if he was just looking for a window to photograph reflection. So if it's about the space, then maybe I want to know more about that space. If it's about reflection, I think there was a better window somewhere, not too far. It's a bit, the jogger is a bit too small. That's not what caught my attention first. It was the pile of letters.
Yeah. I was looking in there to see if there was one from the revenue.
So I much prefer the subway picture.
I know, yeah. I think that was my favourite, those two as well.
Yeah.
Thanks, Valerie, for another Teach Me Street. You are a star as always. You're not travelling just at the moment, are you? It's just...
No, I actually have the month of May.
What are you going to do
lovely.
with yourself? Heaven's sake.
Well, I'm setting up all the 2027 workshops and putting them on the market in a month and writing a book. So I'm busy enough.
And my thanks to Valerie Jardin for Teach Me Street. If you'd like to send a picture in, we'd love to hear from you. Send them to stories@photowalk.show. Hup, hup, hups. There we go. We're going to sit on our makeshift bench, a tree trunk. Lovely idea. No, come on, hup. Yeah, send them into stories@photowalk.show. And if you do get yours read out, then you get a choice of any of Valerie's ebooks, free of charge articles. All right, pups. That's you've been okay, actually. I know you've made a bit more noise today, but you are a joy to walk with. And an accident here. I almost dropped the tin off, and that would have been it. Treats gone, because you don't really want to be finding them amongst all the little tiny pine cones. You're very slobbery. Why are you slobbery today? Yes. Gary Waits. Almost forgot. Gary, sorry. He is back on the Extra Mile today to talk about landscape photography and zines. And Valerie is also back. We're trialling something. I'm asking questions from my endless roll of quickfire questions, something I am trialling as an idea, and I'll probably talk more about it in the Extra Mile. If you would like to hear the Extra Mile, which is our extra walk each week, then you can go to the website photowalk.show and look for the link called Extra Mile. Would you like to hear a little bit of what's on today's show? Of course I would, Neil. Okay.
On this week's Extra Mile.
Aphantasia is the inability to see in the mind's eye. So if you tell me to picture a beach, I can't picture a beach. And even if I've just stood on the beach behind me and turned around, I can't picture that beach. And it was quite interesting because I found out I was driving home from work one day and there was a writer, funnily enough, a well-known writer who was being interviewed, and he mentioned this. And when you get that light bulb moment, you go, hold on a second, I can't do that. I can't imagine an apple when someone says...
A lot of people don't realise that they have this, I don't want to call it a condition, because that makes it sound... Yeah,
it's not a condition, it's just you've either got it or you're somewhere in between.
It's a facet of your mind. Yeah.
That's what awaits you on the Extra Mile today. Last letter of the show in a moment. Some thank yous, though, to our wonderful team. Neil Ford, who keeps the IT shipshape. Andrea Gilpin, our star of Instagram. Kelly Mitchell, who keeps Facebook in order. Kelvin Brown, who's captaining the Flickr group. He even has a hat to prove it. And Michael Brennan, who compiles the show playlist each week, so you can listen back to all our historic show tunes. Shall we do it? Go on, then.
It's the last letter of the show. The last letter of the show.
It's from Gene Westberg, the last letter of the show. Gene from New Harmony, Utah Shire. Utah Shire. I think Shire sounds better in America land. What an amazing sounding place, Gene. Really. I did go to look this up. Of course I did. New Harmony. The town setting is a big part of its identity, apparently. New Harmony sits above 5,000 feet, which brings 4 seasons, cooler summer evenings and some seasonal snowbirds. For many buyers, that combination of elevation, scenery and quiet is what makes the area so appealing. I'm sure it does. Sign me up. Though I bet it's hard to find a house. I don't think this is the sort of place that easily lets folk in just to build estates. You proudly have just 248 people living there, and you are, well, that's from the 2024 figures, and you are one of them, Gene. Without you, it'd be 247. You can count, Neil. I can. Anyway, the letter, which came in after the first 2 episodes I recorded with my best mate, Giles Penfound, photographer and the co-founder of our Saturday breakfast clubs, which are now legendary. If you are either me or Giles, that is, of course. We do sometimes invite other people in, like his wife, which only seems fair because she does live there. But to my knowledge, only a handful of other people have ever attended this club. Lynn Fraser is one, Mally of the Trees Davis is the other. And I think possibly, actually, Captain Keith, did you come to one of these? I think you may have done. But you know the number 1 rule? First rule of Saturday Breakfast Club. Are you all right, pups? What is it again? Don't talk about... Are you stopping me? Don't talk about Saturday Breakfast Club. You're right. I mentioned it. Anyway, the letter. Neil, says Gene. Gene, says Neil. I'm really enjoying this episode where you walk in woodland. Walking in woodland. It's this woodland here, actually, Gene. But it's across the road. It's the other way. It's over that way. What way, Neil? That way. Turn round for this one. Yes, across there. I'm really enjoying this episode where you walk in woodland with Giles to make one photograph of one tree, and wanted to comment on 3 things that stand out to me. First is how comfortable you and Giles are with each other. Obviously, you have more than a casual relationship. Easy now, Gene. Being that comfortable with another man is a blessing not every man gets to appreciate. Do you know what? You're right. Absolutely right. I spend hours. My family find it... They're a bit bemused, to be honest, because Saturday Breakfast Club can last 3, sometimes 4 hours. I mean, clearly we're not eating all that time, but we just seem to find stuff to talk about. Well, with less effort than that word I'm trying to say. Being that comfortable with another man is a blessing not every man gets to appreciate. Keep your friends close, says Gene. They are a diminishing resource. You're right, you are. The second thing is the content of Giles's comments, the way he's explaining what he's doing. It was 5/4 photography or 4/5, depending upon what part of the world you live in. So yes, we were making that one picture. Well, he was making that one picture. So I found what he was explaining and the why very, very insightful. It makes me feel like I know him. Good. I hope it did. I appreciate his humble and understated demeanour. Is that part of the British DNA? I'll put links, by the way, back to that show on the show page today. But it was you'll find it easily. It was episodes 520 and 521. And I like the way you say understated demeanour. Maybe I'll come back to that. Finally, I wanted to comment on your policy. Oh, we talked about this in the show. We talked about all kinds of stuff, and I think it was as we were drinking coffee, and I was talking about profanity, wasn't I, and why we don't have it on the show. Kudos to you, says Gene. I'm so disappointed when I listen to podcasts that include profanity seemingly for its own sake. There's no shock value to it any longer. It seems everyone thinks it's okay to drop F-bombs regardless of the context or the audience. I have the same problem when watching films or TV shows that include gratuitous violence or... I can't say this word, Gene. It starts with S, it ends with X, and there's an E somewhere in the middle. But I'm very English, Gene. And I do everything with my socks on, so it's a difficult one. Unfortunately... Oh, there's a lot of traffic there. This way, pups. Oh, and the wind. Come on, bring your stick. Unfortunately, depending on the show, of course, most of the time, these add nothing to the narrative or the storyline when I'm watching stuff on telly. It's as if there's an assistant to the director of smut monitoring the production to make sure the body count, exposed body parts and F-bomb quotas are being met. My reaction, usually to fast forward through the scene or change to another programme. I know I'm old, 73 this June, don't you dare say that. 73, no age these days. But good taste, manners do not go out of fashion. Thank you for having standards and abiding by them. Well, it's something I feel quite strongly about on my shows, Gene. There are swear words. I know, Pups, you've just done... Don't let me hear you say that word again. But I do bleep, or I use silence, actually, for this show. But I do use silence because I'm aware that there's... Well, it just makes it much easier, and Lord knows I need the audience, for people to put this on even in the car, as so often happens, in front of your grandkids or your kids, or your nieces or your nephews, and not have them ask you embarrassing questions. And that's why I do it. And some of our audience, and what's been our youngest photo walker, well, in terms of a letter that came in, I think was 7. So 7 to 73 and beyond and below, I think. Let's have a play-out song, shall we? To wander with and make some final frames as we think about what's being said today. This is Christine Knoll with a song called Garden. I like this, only found it the other day and I really like it. It's an interesting song because it could, if you squint, be dealing, if you can squint with your ears, be dealing with something we talk of on the show quite often, imposter syndrome. Or perhaps the feeling you're not making your best work. Cue the first letter of the show, actually, or being hard on yourself. The song, it's about the cycles of our lives and the ebb and the flow. So that's the song today. We do need a PS to go with it, of course. Now, I've chosen this. It's from Mary Oliver, who was an American poet. Her work became deeply loved for its attention to the natural world and the small moments people often overlook. She wrote about woods and birds and ponds and dogs and walking, loneliness, grief, wonder, all in very clear, accessible language that never felt too highbrow. And I think this, what she writes about, and her thoughts and poems, could apply, well, in the case of this quote, to photography too. Instructions, she says, for living a life. Pay attention. Be astonished. Tell everyone about it.
If my life is like a garden, I've been pulling weeds for years. Some more stubborn and interwoven, but I'm finally seeing some things a little more clear. Sometimes I feel like a failure, 'cause I planted all these seeds, but like a wash pot never boils. I wait but don't see any green. But then suddenly seasons change, the world keeps turning. Isn't that the joy of living? Sometimes everything feels easy. Midas touch a lucky streak. Then like lightning on a clear day, I'm struck, feeling stuck all over again. All over again. I've lost my head. Cycles like new seasons coming back around.
Photowalk is a Loading Zone production.